Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next interview. I'm really excited to have our guest today, not only because Kayleigh has been doing some amazing work as far as supporting other vegan and ethical businesses, but Kayleigh really has an amazing story about how the business has pivoted, how the business has really kind of looked internal and thought differently about the business and how they could better serve their customers. And I really believe for many of us who are running ethical businesses, vegan businesses, running businesses that are trying to change the world and make the world a better place, it's so important that we all take that time to understand our business, what's our core. And even if we've been in business for a while, it's so important for us to kind of regroup at times and say, how can we be better? How can we serve our customers better? And I'm really excited about sharing with everyone today Kayleigh Nicolaou's kind of journey and the journey of Kakadu Creative and how they not only got started, how they have been making such an amazing impact globally with all of their clients, but also just the insider's view of how us as entrepreneurs get challenged, get stretched, and how we reemerge through all of that to hopefully serve the world and make the world a better place. So Kayleigh, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Great. So let's get everyone caught up. I started to give them a little bit of, what you're about and background and so forth. But let's start with a little bit about your agency, Kakadu Creative. How did it get started? How long have you been in business? And what was your original mission? And then we can transition to the story about how things have maybe changed in the last year.
Yeah, sure. So the business is essentially it's myself and my business partner and other half Lee. We run it, and we both came from corporate publishing, so magazine publishing. And he was in the design department, and I was in the sales division. And then we've been working there for getting on for a decade each, and had built up a big network and built up a lot of skills, but the further we got down the path of that career, and the more we became aware of the environmental situation across the planet and veganism and all the rest of it, we sat back and said, is this where we want to spend our time? Is this where we want to put our energy? Yes, we were doing well, but was it really our purpose? And when we actually sat back and looked at that, the answer was no. It didn't feed our soul. We didn't feel like we were really having a positive impact, and we wanted to change that. And really, initially it started as serving our customers more. It was more about not just sort of taking the money and running, which you can sometimes get in a very corporate environment. It's just about the profit. It's just about the money. And actually, it just was not what we were about. We were about the customer. So we talked and made the decision. It took us 2 or 3 years, to be fair, to actually have the courage to go, do you know what? Let's do it. Let's set ourselves up. And
I love that. If I could just jump in, because I think a lot of times when people think about starting a business, they think it's like an overnight idea. Like you were at a coffee shop one day and then you're like, I'm starting a business on Monday. And I love that you built up the time to get there, to get comfortable with it. I am really glad that you mentioned that. Go ahead. I didn't want to.
Yeah, no, because it was, sometimes, especially if you're in very corporate careers, you've got just secure, you've got that income coming in, you go into work every day, you know what you're doing, you're very comfortable with it, and to walk away from that it's scary, it's a big jump. And so we sort of said, right, okay, let's take our time, let's really plan this out, let's work out what we're going to do with it, and let's save some money, let's get some money behind us, because it's going to take us time to start the business. And so yes, then it was 2018. It was end of 2018 that we'd handed in our notice, and that was it. We left the corporate doors, and Kakadu started to come to fruition. And it was born, like I said, out of a desire to serve customers and put customers first rather than money first.
Nice. Now, when you first started, did you kind of feel like you had a business plan and you're going to do this in marketing and social media and so forth? Or did you guys kind of organically do it? Did you kind of feel it out, get a couple of clients, and then build it from there?
Yeah, we organically grew. To be honest, we started the business with when we went backpacking. We left our corporate career and we were like, right, okay, we're going to go backpacking. We're going to spend 9 months, and if we can run this business out of a backpack and a camper van and cafes and things all over the place, we can run this business from anywhere. That was kind of the test. We wanted to have that freedom and flexibility to be able to run the business from wherever we wanted to be. And Lee, from his career in design, he'd built up a few freelance customers around his day job, and we were really lucky. We spoke to them and we said, look, this is our plan, we're leaving, and then when we come back we want to start our own agency. Will you come on the journey with us, essentially? Help us to soft launch the business and test the model and work out whether it's something that will work. And we were really lucky. They said yes, and so we had a few customers that we worked with whilst we were all over, and then we got back to the UK middle of 2019, and then Kakadu launched officially, and so that was 2.5 years ago. So it was slow. We took our time with it.
Nice. And I love that, because I really feel like building a business isn't as kind of quick as sometimes you see, it kind of, glorified, the idea that when you especially want to build a business that's customer first, it really takes some time, because you have to kind of work hand in hand with the customer. You have to get a sense of what they need, what they're looking for. And especially when you come out of the corporate environment, it's a different need base than it is. And I don't know if you've experienced that completely, but I know I experienced that when I kind of made my leap from corporate America over to kind of, working with smaller businesses, passion-based businesses.
Yeah, and I think that's been the thing that we've really enjoyed about it the most, is that we've been able to step back and really get under the skin of customers' businesses and really get to know them and understand their drive and their passion. You've mentioned it, the passion. And when you're in corporate, that passion is quite often missing. And so it gave us an opportunity to really sit down with customers and understand, okay, what do you want? What do you need? How can we help you? And for us, it was really amazing in those first few customers that we worked with, the amount of them that said, we spoke to other agencies before, and it was very much, we were a number. And just the fact that our approach of putting them first was so unique, even to these small businesses, it just felt, it was great for us because it was what we wanted to do and we wanted to be able to fulfill that need. But it was really sad to think that there were so many out there that weren't doing that, weren't offering that service to the customers and weren't putting them first.
Yeah, it is. It's really surprising how many businesses don't think that way. And it's really sad, but it's also maybe an opportunity for many of us who are starting businesses, because it's an opportunity to kind of take care of our community and also kind of infuse the things that we're passionate about and kind of make that link. So maybe we should talk a little bit about the transformation, the changes that you guys have made in the last year or so, and why you thought it was time to make some changes, and what were those changes and how have they, created a whole new successful arc for your business.
Okay, so sort of going back slightly, so that first year of us running Kakadu, there were some services that we dropped and there were some services that we added. So we'd sort of already started to test different models and how we wanted to work, so physically the services that we offered to our customers. And then it was COVID. We all know what COVID did to the business world out there. And those first couple of months for us were quite hard, because one of the first things that businesses cut is their marketing. Marketing, advertising, all of that stuff is generally the first thing to go. And so we had quite a lot of customers that were calling and putting projects on hold. And initially it was like, oh my God, what do we do? But slowly, once that panic of COVID settled, it all carried on as we'd wanted it to. But the great thing about some of those projects being put on hold was it actually got us time to work on the business rather than in the business. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard that terminology before. We as business owners, we get so sucked into the business and the day-to-day of emails and admin and all the rest of it, that we don't take the time to sit back and actually look at the business as a whole and say, okay, is this what we want? Is this what we set out to create? And so we took some time last year and looked at the business and said, yes, we're working with sort of the size of companies we're working with. Yes, we're delivering the service we want to deliver. Yes, all those bits are ticked, but are we actually doing what we set out to do in regards to being more overtly ethical and sustainable and helping companies to pivot in that way? Mm-hmm. And whilst we were ethical and sustainable behind the scenes, we'd always been quite reluctant. This is going to sound crazy saying it now, but we were really reluctant to bring all of that to the front because we were scared it would turn people off. Yeah. I mean, you hear things of, you talk about being an environmentalist and you could be written off as a hippie, and it's such a stereotype. And we were worried that if we brought that to the front, we would lose customers and we wouldn't get customers and we'd be very pigeonholed. And then the more we sort of talked about it last year and the more we researched and spoke to other people in the sector and looked at people who have brought that messaging to the front of the business, the more encouraged we were to take a leap of faith and do it, and just bring all of that to the front. But it took us probably about 3 or 4 months of really looking into it and planning and talking and going back and forth before we said, right, okay, let's hit that button, let's bring all of this to the front. And and I
love that because I think it's so good that you took the time. I did this session a while ago that I called kind of like, the patience that marketing requires, because the idea is that we all think that everything's about grind it out and get it done and make it happen as fast as humanly possible. And I really think when you're making these strategic changes, when you're making these big changes in your business, sometimes you do need the time to research it. You need the time to get mentally comfortable with it. And then you need the time to think about what will it look like in the end? You know what I mean? Because yes, we have this concept or idea, but how do we roll it out and how do we interact? And, there are all these questions. And I love that you took that time. And I'm hoping for anybody who's listening today that they'll take that time as well and feel confident in taking that time. Because I know it's hard, like you said, when we're so busy in our business, it's hard to work in our business and work on our businesses because we're just busy or running to the next task.
Yeah. And we wanted to also make sure that when we brought all of our ethics and everything to the front, we did it properly. We gave the messaging the space it needed and the care it needed, because there's so much greenwashing out there. There's so many people jumping on the bandwagon because they're seeing it as a boom industry or an opportunity to make money, and that's not what it's about for us. So we wanted to make sure that when we did make that transition and we brought our ethics and everything to the front, it was losing the word. It was people could see that it was true. We really meant it and we really believe it, and it's not just we feel like we're ticking a box type thing.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit of authenticity was
that's one. Yes, exactly. That's the word I was looking for.
Hey, Gloria joins us. She just wanted to say hello, so I wanted to make sure we said hello back. But yeah, I know what you mean. A lot of times when you're making these shifts, especially when sometimes they're trendy topics or trendy things, you really have to figure out where your voice is and why it matters to you, and also how to communicate that so your customers understand that there's a true alliance. It's not just words on, it's not just marketing words. It's not just a tagline. It's really through and through in your business. So when you made that shift, what did that mean? Did that mean you wouldn't work with certain customers anymore? Did that mean that your services drastically changed? Or was it just the way you supported your customers? What kind of shift did it create in your business?
And so realistically, whilst we when we first sort of talked about doing it, and we were so worried that if we did it, it would make such a big impact and we'd lose customers and all the rest of it, actually, the change didn't really have any impact on previous customers. And the main shift that happened with the business is what we started to talk about. So we started to, our articles that we would put on the site were less about the design side of things and were more about how you could you could be ethical with what you do. So, for example, in January, we put out an article about cruelty-free printing. And it's something that we wouldn't have talked about before, because it was something that we did sort of behind the scenes. And again, you worry about switching people off. But we thought, actually, no, we're going to start bringing this information to the front, and we're going to start educating and starting a dialogue with people. And so that's probably what be one of the biggest shifts. It was the messaging that we had on our site, and also the kind of content we put out. The services hadn't really massively changed. I mean, although we did recently launch green hosting for websites. So that was a new service that we added, which we love, it's brilliant. But other than that, it didn't massively change. It was more about the conversations that we're having with our audience and with our customers. And what's been really, really lovely about it is our previous customers have come to us now and been like, oh, I didn't realize, can you talk to me more about this? And I didn't realize that there was animal exploitation in print. Can we have that conversation? And so we're now in a position where we're able to talk to people who are like-minded, and we've opened ourselves up to that sector because they can see that we get it and we understand. But it's also enabled us to have all of these amazing conversations with customers who never even thought of this stuff. So it's been really, really empowering, and we're both really pleased that we made this shift and pushed Kakadu in that direction.
Nice. Now, walk us through your services. I just want to make sure, as people join us today, as people are learning a little bit about what you do, walk us through what you do, so that if anybody is listening and needs some support, or knows a friend, a colleague, they can forward your information to them.
Yeah, sure. So Kakadu's a full service design agency, and sometimes that can be quite hard for people to understand, because they're very used to going to one agency for their logo, and another for their website, and another for their print material, another for their event material. But when we set Kakadu up, we very much wanted to be the remote design team for an SME. So quite often companies will be growing and they need professional design support across all of their marketing materials and all of their design assets, but they don't have the need to have an in-house designer. So they need a team that they can call on and say, right, okay, we've got an event coming up, we need our event materials, we need our leaflets, we need our stand designing, or we need a new website, and they can come to the same team and we can look after it all for them. So Lee and I obviously run it, but we've got partners that offer all of the other services, like copywriting, videography, photography. So we're essentially a company's remote design team, and can help them with everything.
I love that, because I think that's one of the things that's so hard about a brand, is keeping that brand consistent.
Exactly.
It's so easy to, you see something and you're like, oh, cool, I can design it like this, and oh, cool, that looks pretty, and this looks nice, and this is, I saw this somewhere, and then next thing you know, your brand can get a little bit diluted. So being able to have someone who can kind of take over and look at that kind of global asset management, I think is really important for brands, especially as they grow.
Yeah, and this is the thing, because keeping a brand consistent and keeping the messaging consistent is the only way that your audience remembers you. You look at all of the big brands out there, they all have a consistent messaging, consistent color usage, consistent logo usage. It's all consistent, and there's a reason for that. That's because that's how you build recognition, you build reputation, you build trust. If you put an advert out that's green and people see that, and then they see one over here that's yellow, they're not going to associate the two together. So that's why it is really important, as a brand, as a company is wanting to grow, it is really, really important to keep that branding and that style consistent, because that's how you build a brand.
Nice. Now, do you have any recommendations for smaller businesses? I think sometimes when people are just starting out, they're the solopreneur, or, their business has maybe gotten a little bit bigger and they've hired one person, or, they have an assistant or something. They think that, oh, maybe branding something I have to get to later, because today I have to sell. Today I have to figure out my products and services. Do you have any advice for them on what they should be doing now while they are small, and when they should reach out, maybe an agency like yourself?
I'd say don't underestimate the power of, or the importance of, building a brand, and of your website as well. So many small companies will just pull together any old website and they'll get it out because they just feel like they need a web presence, for example. I just need a website, I'll just get it out. And it's not about just having a website. It's about the fact that that website is essentially your shop front. It's your 24/7 shop. It's your 24/7 member of staff. And it's really important, especially now. I mean, look at the last 12 months. If you didn't have a web presence, you essentially disappeared for a very long time. So it's not underestimating the importance of it, but I completely get the fact that it can be expensive. You know, it can be a big cost for a small company. So but take some areas and focus on them and do them really well. So quite often companies will, if we talk about social media, for example, they think that they have to be on every single platform. But actually, by spreading yourself that thin, you're not doing any platform well. You're doing all of them. You're kind of just ticking a box. So, you know, if you're going to do it properly. And if you're not going to do it properly, focus on something else that you can give your full attention. I hope that's helped. I hope that's
I definitely, because I echo that same thing. I tell people all the time about spreading themselves too thin. It's so important to focus. And then also a lot of times I'll tell people from a creative standpoint is, even if you don't have the budget, and you can let me know if you agree with this, but a lot of times I tell people you may not have the budget to do everything with an agency, but what an agency can help you do is set up the templates or set up the standards. So they can help you with a brand guideline. They can help you to make sure your logo is really done well. And then they can give you a sense of, okay, if you have to do your own social media assets, you have to do these other items, use this brand guide so that you can have a level of consistency. And that's one way I've been kind of telling people that you can get the benefit of working with an agency in the beginning. And then as you find your way, generate some money, now you can go back to that agency and then leverage and continue that relationship as you grow.
Yeah, and it's also about being really honest with yourself. So, I mean, there are so many tools out there that enable people to create assets and create sites and adverts and all the rest of it themselves. But it's about taking the moment and actually looking at it and thinking, okay, is this really representing my brand as I want it to? And research, go and look at your competitors, go and look at other people in different sectors and start trying to pick out things that you can see that are good. So, you can quite easily go to a website and work out whether it looks professional or not. And compare to find one that's a really well designed site and a really badly designed site, and try and pick out what it is that makes each one better or worse. The same with adverts, same with logos. Get some and try and take some time to really pin down what it is that makes something look professional, because you can then take those skills and that learning into creating your own assets and your own content, and it will just help to push you to that next level and help you to bridge the gap from startup to agency support.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because, one thing I used to, when we first started out, we did everything as well. We had like every service under the sun. And one of the things that we struggle with in the beginning is a lot of people thought they had to walk this kind of like vegan lane. If they were a vegan business, it had to be green. It had to have certain colors in it. It just had to stay in this lane. And one thing that we would always teach people is that it's really about the brand and how the brand you want to express it. It doesn't have to have broccoli in it because it's a vegan brand. We don't have to have a leaf growing out the grass just because it's a vegan brand. And I've been finding that it's really, not only have we been educating people about that over the years, I still continue to work with people to help them understand that a brand is beyond sometimes that stereotypical image. It really should be how you want to speak to the world. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I just know that it's been difficult for a lot of vegans because they think they have to stay in this vegan box, in a sense.
And actually, by stepping out of that box, you give yourself a competitive edge, like a major competitive edge. So, like for us, for example, if anyone watching, if you were to go to our site, when you think of a design agency, you quite often think them to be very clean lines and quite a lot of white and very simple fonts, and it's all quite often it's very generic. And for us, we were just like, no, that is not what we want. We're a design agency. We want people to see that we can be creative. So we're all about dirty edges and like custom fonts and bold colors and things. But it's equally, like we're talking about the vegan sector. Have you seen vegan fried chicken? I don't know if you.
Oh yeah, I have.
So they're great. You know, they've got this really strong, bold brand. It's not green. You know, it's vegan. It's not green.
Yeah.
And by them really standing out, they took some of their packaging. It was so cool. They took some of their packaging into a supermarket, and they put their packaging inside the freezer that holds all of the vegetarian and vegan options. It's bright red. And they put this bright red bit of packaging into this fridge and took a photo of the doors. And their brand just pops out because they're so different. They've really changed it up and made themselves stand out. So yeah, God, yeah, if you don't follow the crowd. If you've got the courage to be a bit different, you'll get the competitive edge, definitely.
Nice. Now, we've gone over our traditional 20 minutes because I always have such a good time talking with people. And obviously with you, I'm having a blast. So maybe as we start to wrap up today's session, do you have any kind of final words or recommendations for anyone who is looking at making changes in their business? Really, like you said, reevaluating, taking a step back and saying, how do they want to bring their ethics forward? Whether it's their veganism, whether it's the environmental side of things, or whether it's even something that's just near and dear and personal to them. Do you have any kind of thoughts about how they should approach that process?
So for us, I mean, the biggest thing that helped us was just having conversations with people, talking to people that have already maybe made that leap. So we spoke to a few people that had already brought all of their ethics and their ethos and their veganism to the front of their business and said, how did you do it? What was the process? And just speaking to people to get that courage. And it's funny because there's someone who gave us a piece of advice at the very beginning of our journey into deciding whether to bring all of this to the front. And they said that every time they've thought about niching and bringing their ethics and things to the front, whenever they've done it and they've made that leap, they always wish they did it sooner. And I spoke to him recently and I said, do you remember when we spoke? It was probably about 6 months ago. Remember we spoke and you said, you wished you'd brought it to the front sooner. He said, yeah, we're exactly the same. We wish we'd done it sooner, but we had to take that time to be comfortable with it. So I don't think if anyone's listening and they're just trying to decide whether they should even start down that path, I don't think you'll regret it, but just take your time and just speak to people and do your research. But yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been great. I'm glad we had a chance to chit chat, before today's session, and we had a chance to chit chat today. So this has been wonderful. And also I look forward to just staying in touch.
Yeah.
But let's make sure if anyone wants to get in touch with you, or they want to reach out to you, how do they get in touch with you? Website, social media, email? What's the best approach? Or all of them?
All of the above, to be fair. And so, obviously we have our website, which is www.kakaducreative.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Kayleigh Nicolaou around. I know I was the only Kayleigh Nicolaou on Facebook. So I'm probably the only Kayleigh Nicolaou on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, I'm always on there. We're on Instagram as well, at Kakadu Creative. And email address is on the site as well. So, but if anyone's ever got any questions and they want to talk to someone who's gone through this, and just wants to, pick our brains, we would be more than happy to have a conversation with people and just share more of our story and how we got to where we are now. And give some support.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think that's what happens a lot of times. People just want support, or they just want to hear somebody else's perspective to sometimes reconfirm what they're thinking.
Yeah.
But I agree. It definitely takes courage to do this. And it's so wonderful to see that you had the courage, that you and your partner had the courage to do it. And it's really great to see the work that you're doing. And I can't wait to continue to stay in touch and hear about all the great things you're going to be doing in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for having me. And thank you to everyone watching.
Thanks everyone who watched today. Really appreciate it. As always, we appreciate those likes and those thumbs ups. If you enjoyed today's session, felt inspired by today's session, or maybe even learned something new that you weren't expecting, definitely let us know in the comments. Definitely give us those likes and thumbs ups. And we will see everyone in our next interview. Bye, everyone.
Bye.